My name is Laura Quinn, and I've learned that being born into a family doesn't guarantee belonging to it. The envelope arrived on a Thursday. Heavy cream cardstock, gold calligraphy, wax seal with a delicate Q and invitation. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Celeste Quinn and Damian Cross. I stared at it for a long time. It looked like something pulled from a lifestyle magazine, impossibly perfect. Unlike me, no personal note, not even a phone call, just an obligation disguised as courtesy. I turned it over in my hands. It smelled faintly of gardenias, my sister's favorite flower, the one our mother always said was too elegant for me. I placed the card on my kitchen table and sat in silence, my fingers tracing the edge. We hadn't spoken in almost 2 years. Not since the accident. Not since I lost the use of my legs and they lost the patience to see me as anything but a shadow. My mother, Evelyn, once told a guest at a gala, Laura has always been quiet, sensitive, more of a background girl. That was her polite way of saying I didn't shine like Celeste. I didn't command rooms. I didn't wear sparkle well. The last time I saw my father, Victor, he patted my shoulder like I was an intern. "You're holding up okay?" he asked, like he genuinely couldn't tell. They didn't forget me. That would have been easier. They remembered me in pieces, just enough to fit the image. Just enough to use me. Still, some strange gravity pulled at me. Not love, not forgiveness, just the need to see if they'd look me in the eye or look past me again. So I arfed, rented a gown, scheduled transportation, and told myself this would be the last time I stepped into their curated world. If they saw me now, they'd think I came for them. But I didn't. I came for myself. To remind them I still existed. Not as a ghost. Not as a photo memory. But as a person who watched everything and forgot nothing. Whatever waited beyond that envelope didn't scare me. Being invisible again did. That fear was louder than pride. So I said yes. And I was ready. The car ride was quiet. Just the sound of wheels over gravel as we pulled into the vineyard, an estate so manicured it looked fake. Rows of wine-stained hills, ivory drapes hanging from pergolas, violins humming somewhere in the distance. I had to admit, it was beautiful. Cold, but beautiful. A young man opened the car door. He hesitated when he saw the wheelchair, then offered a quick and sure smile. "You, need assistance, ma'am?" I told him no. Learned to manage my chair better than most people managed their kindness. He handed me my clutch and wheeled my luggage toward the staff entrance. I followed the signs to the guest terrace alone. The reception space was all elegance, crystal glasses, cascading floral towers, seating cards and gold script. I scanned for mine. Laura Quinn, table 9. I found it. Behind a column, close to the kitchen doors. Out of view, out of the way. I almost laughed. There were no familiar faces at my table. Just distant cousins, maybe, or strangers. One woman looked at me, then away, without even a polite smile. In front of my plate was a menu folded like an origami crane, as if presentation could distract from placement. In the distance, I saw my mother, Evelyn Quinn, dressed in steel gray satin. Hair swept back like a senator's wife. She noticed me but didn't wave. My father, Victor, was standing next to Mr. Whitmore, some old money family friend. He raised his glass in my direction, whether out of acknowledgement or muscle memory. I couldn't tell. Then came Celeste, in a rehearsal gown that could blind the sun. She glided through guests like a queen through peasants, kissing cheeks and collecting compliments. When her eyes landed on me, she paused. Not long, just enough to register that I had shown up. Then she turned away, mid-conversation. No welcome, no hug, not even a fake smile for appearance's sake. And somehow, that told me more than any speech ever could. I wasn't a guest. I was a checkbox, a necessary optic, a seat to be filled for the photos. So I adjusted my posture, fixed my smile, and waited for the performance to begin. By noon, the vineyard was a stage. Coordinators with headsets buzzed around like anxious bees, adjusting drapery angles and floral arrangements no one would remember. Every chair had been measured, every candle placed to appear effortlessly romantic. Everything and everyone was curated. I watched from a corner near the fountains, a quiet vantage point. No one noticed me. They noticed my chair though. People saw wheelchairs the way they saw fire alarms, awkward fixtures you hoped wouldn't make a sound. I caught fragments of gossip between champagne flutes. She still doesn't work, I heard. Tragic. But her sister's been so strong. At least one of the Quinn girls turned out elegant. I sipped water, smiled at no one, and breathed through the hum of polished judgment. Then, finally, the procession began. Celeste emerged from the grand archway, dressed in a gown that shimmered like glass. Guests gasped. Cameras clicked. The air shifted to accommodate her. She looked radiant, every inch the woman our parents dreamed of presenting to the world. Behind her, arm in arm, were Victor and Evelyn, glowing like royalty. Not proud, victorious. I searched their faces for something human. A flicker of memory. A trace of pain. But all I saw was branding. Look at us. We've survived. We are unbroken. And me? I was nowhere in that picture. Then came Damien Cross, the groom, dashing, smug, and entirely too aware of it. He waved to a cluster of models seated near the front row, then whispered something into Celeste's ear that made her laugh a little too loud. I rolled back slightly, not out of shame but to avoid being crushed by the illusion. As the officiant began, I scanned the crowd for one face: Rowan Blake. He was the only person who had ever spoken to me without looking through me. A friend once, maybe more, in another version of our lives. But he wasn't here. Of course he wasn't. He had left this world long ago, choosing peace over performance. As Celeste and Damien exchanged vows, long, ornate, and devoid of truth, I felt no anger. Just distance. A calm sort of grief. Like watching a movie where you already know the ending, but you sit through it anyway, because someone paid for the ticket. And when they kissed, and the audience erupted in applause, I didn't clap. Not out of defiance, but because some silences are louder than applause. The reception began in the courtyard under floating lanterns and a dusk sky painted in shades of gold. A jazz quartet played something smooth and forgettable. Plates clinked. Laughter rose in artificial waves. It was all perfect, manufactured, choreographed perfection. I kept to the edges, sipping ginger ale, watching guests pretend to care about people they barely knew. Every corner of the evening was lit with purpose. Every smile practiced. I wasn't sure what was worse, being pitied or being ignored. Didn't expect to see you here, said a voice behind me. Damien Cross. Loosened tie, wine glass in hand, smirk intact. I turned to face him. Surprise. You clean up well, he said, eyes drifting downward. Chair suits you. Adds mystery. There it was. The oily charm, the insinuation, the ego. I smiled tightly. And you still talk like a man who thinks he's doing women a favor, he chuckled, sipped, leaned in closer. You know, if things had been different, but they weren't. I cut in. And they aren't? His smile twitched. Celeste thinks you came to make a scene. She's worried you'll embarrass her. That would require her to feel embarrassment. I don't think she's capable. He straightened. You should be careful how you talk about my wife. You should have been careful before making her one, I said, tone even. He walked away without another word. A few minutes later, Celeste approached, champagne flute poised like a dagger. Really, Lara? Picking fights? At my wedding? I didn't pick anything, I replied. Your husband did. She scoffed. You love playing the victim, don't you? Still dragging that chair around like it's a crown of thorns. I blinked, then smiled. No, I drag you around. The weight of who you are is heavier than any chair. The silence that followed was sharp. Her face tensed, a crack in the porcelain. For a brief second, I thought she might cry. But Celeste Quinn didn't cry in public. She hissed, spun on her heel, and vanished into the crowd. And just like that, the room shifted. A few eyes turned. A ripple, barely noticeable, moved through the party. But I was done performing. I wheeled myself toward the quiet part of the garden, away from the chandeliers and curated laughter. For the first time that evening, I breathed freely. Not because I had won anything, but because I had refused to lose myself again. The garden behind the vineyard was quieter, less polished. Vines tangled freely here, stones moss-covered and imperfect. I stayed in that corner long after the music faded behind me. For a moment, I felt untouched by the weight of my last name. Then a voice broke the stillness. I wondered where they were hiding you. I turned. Rowan Blake. He looked older than I remembered, beard grown, posture less guarded, but his eyes were the same. Steady, kind, real. I thought you left, I said, surprised by how small my voice sounded. I did, for a while, he said, but someone had to make sure you weren't drowning in Quinn Theater. I let out a half laugh. A little late for that. Rowan walked over and sat on a stone bench across from me. You've changed. I had to. He nodded. You always had this quiet strength. They hated that. Couldn't control it. I looked at him. Why did you stop writing me? He paused. Because I didn't know how to say what I needed to say. And I wasn't sure if you still wanted the truth. I studied him. The man who once held my hand through the darkest nights of recovery. Say it now. He exhaled. Celeste knew. About the brakes. She knew before the accident that something was wrong with your car. I overheard her on the phone with your father. They decided not to report it. Said it would ruin the brand. The words hit like a slow-burning fuse. I blinked. You're saying, they knew I could have died? They gambled you wouldn't. And when you lived, it was just inconvenient. A cold stillness settled in my chest. Why didn't you tell me then? I asked. Because I knew you weren't ready to hear it. You still wanted their love, even if it cost you, and he was right. I had spent 2 years trying to earn affection from people who calculated my worth in silence. I thought I was forgotten, but no, they remembered me. They chose to. I'm ready now, I whispered. Rowan stood. Then let's go. Where? Anywhere that doesn't require a mask. I looked back toward the lights of the reception. The laughter. The illusion. Then I looked at Rowan. And I chose the truth. As I wheeled beside him, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel weak. I felt awake. The mask had slipped, and I had survived what was underneath. 3 days later, back in my apartment, I wrote the letter. Not for them. For me. It wasn't long. Just enough to empty what had filled my chest for years. Dear Celeste, I saw you on your stage, crowned and adored. You played the part well. But even perfect masks crack when the lights go down. You once said I was fragile, that I broke too easily, but you mistook softness for weakness. What you never understood is that surviving without armor is the bravest thing anyone can do. You married a man who sees you as ornament, not soul. You call that a win. I call it a lifetime of silence. You stepped over my body for your spotlight, but I got up, and I walked away. Even if the world only sees wheels beneath me. You lost nothing in the accident, but you lost me in the aftermath. And that is something you will feel eventually. Not because I was loud, but because I was the only one who ever looked at you without envy. I hope your wedding photos age better than your conscience. I sealed it, then burned it in my sink. Some things don't need to be sent. They just need to be said. Rowan called later that evening. No small talk. Just, are you okay? I am now, I said, and I meant it. Outside, rain tapped against the windows like a quiet applause. Not for what I had done but for what I hadn't allowed. I had returned to that world and walked out untouched. Unclaimed. Not erased. Not invisible. Simply, mine. No final scene. No dramatic goodbye. Just a woman who finally stopped needing to be seen by those who never really looked. The story wasn't about their approval anymore. It was about reclaiming the parts of me they tried to bury. And I had. Fully,